Virtuoso sees danger, deception, and murder descend upon a sleepy town when a professional assassin, played by Anson Mount, accepts a new assignment from his enigmatic boss, played by Anthony Hopkins. This is directed by Nick Staliano, who also co-wrote the screenplay, and while I hadn't heard too many good things about this one going into it, I was somewhat intrigued as I first heard about it around the time of Anthony Hopkins' big Oscar win for The Father, so I was in the mood to see what else he was up to these days. Now, I just got around to seeing it recently, and I gotta say, the wait certainly was not worth it, and this movie was just as bad as I've heard. It's ultimately a disjointed mess, with much of it essentially contradicting itself. Our lead character, who's unnamed but pretentiously calls himself a virtuoso, narrates much of the film, explaining to us every single little thing in excruciating detail, and it gets annoying pretty quickly. A lot of it revolves around this character just talking about how great he is, and whenever he's not being condescending and narcissistic, he's actually pretty dull, as his overly detailed voiceover leaves absolutely nothing to the imagination. While I've heard of Anson Mount prior to this is the first time I'm actually seeing anything with him in it. And while I'm sure he's probably a talented guy, as he's had his fair share of film and TV roles, this unfortunately was not a great first impression, though I do hope to check out something of his that would be a better showcase of his talents at some point. Now, while the narration is relentless and obnoxious enough on its own to dislike this movie, where this truly falls apart is its storyline. For one thing, the nature of his mission on its own is unnecessarily convoluted, where he's told to go to a diner at a certain time and just figure out on his own who his target is. And then from there, because he doesn't know who he has to go after, he begins tracking down each of the patrons one by one, and despite the fact that we spent the first part of this movie hearing this character stroke his own ego and talk about how perfect he is, suddenly he keeps screwing up and making all these dumb mistakes as he's not sure who it is he's actually supposed to kill. Yet he winds up killing just about all the wrong people anyway. Now, I get that the idea is that this task proved to be so challenging that this seemingly perfect lead character even finds it difficult, but this guy does a complete 180, essentially just going against everything he spoke about in all of his narration, which we continue to still hear all throughout the film, despite the fact we didn't ask for it. It's clear that there wasn't much thought put into either the story or these characters, and we just have them making silly mistakes simply to stretch out the runtime. The only positives I really had regarding this were Abbie Cornish as a waitress at the diner who winds up being the Virtuoso's love interest, and it's not so much due to her character, but just due to Abbie Cornish being a generally charismatic and reliable actress who really does try here, and Anthony Hopkins himself isn't bad here either. Granted, his role is pretty small, mainly seen at the beginning and end of the film, and because of how little he really gets to do, this was the closest I've ever seen to him phoning it in, but even phoned in Anthony Hopkins, if you can call it that, is still pretty good. So that's just a testament to the man's talent. I also thought David Morse as the deputy sheriff, who's one of the diner patrons, actually wasn't bad either, but his role is relatively small as well. The story, though, was all over the place, and it felt more like a comedy of errors in the vein of a Coen Brothers movie, except that that wasn't its intention. And it leads to a big twist ending that you can see coming from a mile away. So I really didn't care for this one. It offered no thrills or excitement, it stretched out one suspension of disbelief way too far, and even with its narration explaining everything, it clearly doesn't always make sense. So this one's an easy skip. The Virtuoso gets a 3.5 out of 10. So let me know, did you see The Virtuoso, or are you planning to see it, and what were your thoughts? Did you like the story at all? Have you seen a good thriller lately? Let me know in the comments below so we can discuss. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please like it and share it, and for more movie reviews and film discussion, please make sure to hit that subscribe button to stay updated. Thanks for watching everyone, and keep having fun with film.